Yes, I'm hungry. Give me biscuits. Margaya said. Wait a little, young man.
I'll fill a whole shelf with biscuits and chocolates and fruit. All for me? The boy asked eagerly.
Yes, absolutely, provided you don't bother me. But leave me alone now, Margaya said. He went into their little room and pulled out a wooden chest. It was filled with letters in their old envelopes of nearly 30 years ago. There you could find letters written by Margaya's father from a village.
Margaya's father-in-law writing to his new son-in-law, a letter from an uncle saying that there was a nice girl to be married and proposing her for Margaya, enclosing horoscopes. There were several letters containing saffron-tipped horoscopes on old stiff paper. There were unknown names of girls, either proposed to Margaya or to his brother, with their horoscopes, and many acrimonious letters that passed between him and his brother before the partition.
Every letter he picked up stirred a cloud of dust. Little Balu stole up and stood at his shoulder as he squatted on the ground. Margaya turned round and said, Balu, you must promise not to put your hand out.
Why? Margaya handed him over to his wife with, take this fellow away. If you let him come near me again.
She snatched him up as he protested and shouted and carried him away, muttering, this is only a trick to send me off. You don't like me to see what you are doing, I suppose.
I don't know what you are up to. So mysterious. Women can't hold their tongues, that's why, Margaya replied.
Little Balu made a good deal of noise in the other room and Margaya muttered, she has completely spoiled him, beyond remedy. I must take him out of her hands and put him to school. That's the only way, otherwise he will be a terrible scoundrel. As he rummaged in the contents of the box, his mind kept ringing with his wife's weak protests and grumblings. Seems to be bent upon worrying me, she's getting queer,
he said to himself. He took up every envelope, gazed on its postmark, examined the letters, became engrossed for a while in bygone family politics, and finally came upon a couple of horoscopes tucked into an envelope addressed to his father. A short note by his father-in-law said, I'm returning to you the originals of the horoscopes of Saubhagyavati, ever auspicious
Meenakshi, and your son Chiranjeevi, eternally living, Krishna. Your daughter-in-law is keeping well. Any day you ask us to fix the nuptial ceremony, I shall bring her over.
Margaya, he hadn't yet attained that name, felt a sudden tenderness for his wife. She seemed to become all at once a young bashful virgin bride. Meena,
he cried. Here are the horoscopes. She came up, still bearing her son on her arm.
Margaya flourished the horoscopes. I've found them. He clung to them as if he had secured the plan of approach to a buried treasure.
What is it? She asked. He held up the letter and cried, this is a letter from your father about our nuptials.
She blushed slightly, and turned away. What has come over you that you are unearthing all this stuff? Little Balu would not let her finish her sentence. He started wriggling in her arm, and showed an inclination to dash for his father's horoscope.
Take him away, cried Margaya. Otherwise we shall find all this in the gutter before our house, so much for this son of ours. Presently she came without their son to ask, what exactly are you planning?
Her face was full of perplexity. Don't worry, he said, looking up at her. He still felt the tenderness that he had felt for her as a virginal bride.
He told her, don't worry. I've not been hunting out my horoscope in order to search for a bride. He laughed.
She found it difficult to enjoy the joke with him. It was too puzzling. She merely said, by all means, look for a bride.
I shan't mind. He was disappointed that she sounded so indifferent. He was proud to feel that she guarded him jealously. However, he bantered her about it without telling anything.
He could not exactly say in all seriousness what he was trying to do. You will know all about it very soon. When he started out that day, she asked rather nervously, will you be late again today?
Yes, he said. What if I am late? I'm only out on business, be assured.
His son said, I will come with you too, and ran down the steps and clung to him. Margaya could not shake him off easily. He carried him up to the end of the street and lectured him all the way on how he should behave in order to qualify for biscuits and chocolates.
The lecture seemed to affect him since he became quite docile when Margaya put him back at his house and left. That night, in his shack, the priest scrutinized the horoscope with the aid of an oil lamp. He spread it out and pored over it for a long while in silence.
He said, Saturn. Saturn. This god is moving on to that house.
He may do you good if you propitiate him. Why don't you go and pray in that other temple where they've installed the planetary deities? Go there with an offering of honey.
Where can I get honey? Margaya asked, looking worried. He suddenly realized that he had never bought honey in his life.
It was just one of those things that one always had at home, when the household was managed by one's parents. Now he recollected that ever since he became an independent family head, he had managed to get along without honey. Now the testing time seemed to have come.
The priest burst into one of his frightening chuckles. He remarked, Margaya shows the whole world how to increase their cash, but honey. He stands defeated before honey, is that it?
I will manage it, Margaya said haughtily. I was only saying, the priest arbitrarily cut short all further reference to the subject. On Saturday go to the temple and go round its corridor thrice.
Do you know that Saturn is the most powerful entity in the world? And if he is gratified, he can make you a ruler of this world, or he can just drown you in an ocean of misery. Nobody can escape him.
Better keep him in good humor. All right, I will do as you say, Margaya said, with quiet obedience in his voice. He felt as if Saturn were around him, and might give him a twist and lift him up for the plunge into the ocean of misery if he did not behave properly.
It was 4 o'clock when the priest had finished giving him instructions, a course of prayers and activities. He recited a short verse and commanded Margaya to copy it down in Sanskrit, and side by side take down its meaning in Tamil. He saw him off at the door and said, You need not see me again, unless you want to.
Follow these rules. Will they produce results? Who can say?
The priest answered. Results are not in our hands. Then why should we do all this?
Very well, don't. Nobody compels you to. Margaya felt completely crushed under all this metaphysical explanation. He bowed his head in humility.
The priest closed one door, held his hand on the other, and said, The Shastra lay down such and such rituals for such and such ends. Between a man who performs them and one who doesn't, the chances are greater for the former. That's all I can say.
The results are, you may have results or you may not, or you may have results and wish that you had failed. What is your experience with this mantra? Me.
He chuckled once again. I'm a sannyasi, I have no use for it. Don't do it unless you wish to, said the priest and shut the door. Margaya stood hesitating in the road with the stanza in his pocket, and all the spiritual prescription written down.
He looked despairingly at the closed door of the temple and turned homeward. He felt it was no use hesitating. He might go on putting questions, the other could answer, yet still the problem would remain unsolved.
Problem? What's the problem? He suddenly asked.
It was a happy state of affairs not to remember what the problem was. The priest had been saying so much incomprehensible stuff that Margaya felt dizzy and fuddled. He stopped in the middle of the road and resolved, he has told me what to do.
I shall do it honestly. Let me not bother about other things. Margaya's wife was overawed by his activities.
He told her next day, clear up that room for me, indicating the single room in their house in which she slept with her child, and into which all the household trunks and odds and ends were also thrown. What are we to do with these things? Throw them out.
I want that place for the next 40 days. Where am I to sleep? What silly questions you keep asking?
Is this the time to think of such problems? She became docile at this attack and begged, can't you tell me exactly what you want to do? He told her in a sort of way, he'd been advised not to talk of his method and aim even to his wife.
The priest had said, even to your wife, there are certain practices which become neutralized the moment they are clothed in words. She asked, is this what people call alchemy, changing base metals? No, it is not, said Margaya, not liking the comparison.
They say that it is like magic, black magic, she wailed, looking very much frightened. Don't get silly notions in your head, it is not that. The priest is not a man who dabbles in black magic. Don't go talking about it to anyone.
The little room was cleared and all the odds and ends, broken down furniture, trunks and boxes, stacks of paper, spare bedrolls, and pillows and mats were pulled out and heaped in a corner of their little central hall. Balu became ecstatic. He pulled down the things and mixed them up and generally enjoyed the confusion.
Their neighbors heard the noise of shifting and thought, they are doing something in the next house, wonder what it is? They tried to spy on them, but there was a blank wall between them. Margaya had the room washed clean, chased out the rats and cockroaches, and swept off the cobwebs that hung on the wall and corners.
It was a very small room, less than 8 feet broad, with a single narrow window opening on the street. If the shutter was closed, the room became pitch dark. Margaya drew up several pots of water from the well and splashed the water about.
He then commanded his wife to decorate the floor with white flower designs, a decoration necessary for all auspicious occasions. He had a string of mango leaves tied across the doorway. He took from a nail in the hall the picture of the goddess Lakshmi, put up a short pedestal and placed the picture on it, the four-armed goddess, who presides over wealth, distinction, bravery, enterprise, and all the good things in life.
When he carried the picture in, his wife understood something of his plans. Oh, I see, I now understand. That's all right. If you understand, so much the better, but keep it to yourself.
He had 200 rupees in his possession still, which he had to use up. He gave his wife a list of articles she should supply him with, such as jaggery, turmeric, colored cooked rice, fruit, refined sugar, black gram cake, sweetened sesame, curd, spiced rice and various kinds of fruits and honey. He would require these in small quantities morning and evening for offering, and most of them were also to be his diet during the period of japa.
He gave his wife 100 rupees and said, "This is my last coin. You have to manage with it. What about the provisions for the house, and the milkman?"
"Oh, do something. Manage the milkman and the rest for some time and then we will pull through. This is more urgent than anything else." A couple of days later, at the full moon, he began his rites.
He sat before the image of Lakshmi. He shut the door, though his son banged on it from time to time. He kept only a slight opening of the window shutter, through which a small ray of light came in, but not the curiosity of the neighbors.
He wore a loincloth soaked in water. A variety of small articles were spread out before him in little pans. He inscribed a certain Sanskrit syllable on a piece of deer skin and tied it round his neck with a string.
He had been in an agony till he found the deer skin. The priest had told him, "You must carve out this on an antelope skin." Antelope.
He gasped. Was he a hunter? Where did one go and find the antelope skin?
You search in your house properly and you will find one. Our elders have always possessed them for sitting on and praying, said the priest. Very well, I will look for one, said Margaya.
And then, have you seen any red lotus? Yes, I have, Margaya said apprehensively, wondering what was coming next. Where? Asked the priest.
Margaya blinked and felt disgusted with himself. They usually sell them in the street for Vara Lakshmi festival. Exactly, said the priest. But now you will have to go where it is found.
Formerly, you could pick up a lotus from any pond nearby. There were perhaps 10 spots in a town where you could pick up a lotus in former days, but now, our world is going to pieces because we have no more lotus about. It's a great flower. The influence it has on a human being is incalculable. After a dissertation on lotus, the priest said, beyond Saryu, towards the north, there is a garden where there is a ruined temple with a pond.
You will find red lotus there. Get one, burn its petals to a pitch black, and mix it with ghee. Ghee.
Oh, yes, Margaya said, feeling that here was at least one article which you could find in the kitchen. Even if the storeman was ill-disposed, one might still win him over in view of the impending change of circumstances. It must be ghee made of milk drawn from a smoke-colored cow, said the priest.